Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I work as a mechanic at a local auto shop, and I've always been the go-to person in my family for car-related stuff. I've got a decent collection of parts and tires that I've acquired over the years, mostly through good deals and trade-ins. My younger cousin, who's only 16, has been trying to save up for car parts while working part-time at a fast food joint. He's a good kid just trying to make it work with what little he has. About 2 months ago, he called me in a panic because his tires were completely worn out and unsafe to drive on. Being the kind of person who can't stand seeing family struggle, I offered to lend him a set of my premium all-season tires until he could afford new ones. They were worth about $800, but I trusted him. We even wrote up a simple agreement stating these were a temporary loan, just to keep things clear. Everything was fine until his mother got involved. Now I should mention that my aunt, I use that term loosely, has been struggling with substance abuse for years. She's burned bridges with most of the family, but we still try to help my cousin when we can. One morning I got a frantic call from my cousin. He told me his mom was planning to sell the truck for drug money. I was shocked and told him she couldn't do that since he needed the truck for work. He explained that she was claiming since the truck was in her name, she could do whatever she wanted, and was threatening to report it stolen if he didn't give her the keys. When I asked about my tires, he said she didn't care and was insisting they were hers now since they were on her truck. Later that day, I got a threatening call from her. Karen warned me to stay out of it, claiming the tires were hers now and threatening to call the police if I tried anything. I reminded her that I had proof of purchase and a written agreement with her son, but she dismissed it entirely. She told me she didn't care what paper I had. Since they were on her truck, they belonged to her, and she'd have me arrested if I tried to take them. That night, after my cousin texted me that his mom was passed out, I went over there. I brought my tools and some jack stands. It took me about 30 minutes to get my tires off and replace them with the old ones. I made sure the truck was secure on the stands. I might have been angry, but I wasn't about to risk anyone's safety. The next morning, all hell broke loose. Karen called the police, screaming about theft. When the officers contacted me, I explained everything and showed them my evidence. The original receipts, the loan agreement with my cousin, even the contact information for the tire shop where I bought them. They seemed satisfied at first, but 3 weeks later, I got another call from the police. The officer demanded that I return the wheels to their rightful owner. When I insisted that I was the rightful owner and had shown them all the proof, he claimed that according to their understanding, once the wheels were mounted on her vehicle, they became her property. He threatened me with theft charges unless I returned them. I pointed out how ridiculous this logic was, asking if putting my tires on anyone's car meant they automatically owned them. The officer just coldly told me that's how it was, and I needed to return the wheels or face charges. I wasn't about to give in to this nonsense, so I contacted a lawyer who specializes in criminal defense. The moment he heard my story, he actually laughed and told me how ridiculous it was. He explained that they were trying to intimidate me with legal-sounding nonsense and advised me to keep all my documentation safe, assuring me we'd handle it if they actually filed charges. Turns out the lawyer was right. When the case made it to the prosecutor's office, they took one look at my documentation and Karen's history of filing false police reports and dropped everything. But it gets better. During the investigation, they found drugs in her house. She is now facing possession charges, and my cousin has moved in with his dad. The truck? She tried to sell it anyway, but since my cousin's dad's name was also on the title, something she conveniently forgot, he was able to stop the sale and transfer ownership to himself. My cousin still has his truck for work, and my tires are safely back in my garage. The police officers who tried to intimidate me got a formal reprimand for mishandling the case. Apparently, their supervisor wasn't too happy about them making up laws on the spot. I've always struggled with anxiety, and my therapist suggested I try yoga to help manage my stress. I work as an emergency room nurse, and my shifts can be pretty intense, so I decided to give it a try. I found this studio near the hospital that offered classes that perfectly fit between my morning routine and my afternoon shift. The class itself was great for the first few weeks. I was getting better at managing my breathing, and I could feel my body becoming more flexible. The only downside was our instructor. She was one of those people who treated veganism like a religion and wouldn't shut up about it. Every class, she'd spend at least 5 minutes preaching about the moral superiority of her lifestyle choices. I usually ignored her comments and focused on the poses, but things came to a head last Wednesday. I had packed myself a chicken sandwich to eat after class before heading to my shift. I was sitting on a bench outside the studio, still in my yoga clothes, when it happened. The instructor approached me with a look of disgust on her face and demanded to know what I was doing. I simply told her I was having my lunch before work. She called my food disgusting and accused me of consuming death. When I tried to explain that I respected her choices but needed to eat before my hospital shift, she became even more agitated. She sneered at the mention of the hospital, calling me a hypocrite for claiming to help people while contributing to animal suffering. Before I could defend myself, she slapped the sandwich out of my hands, sending it flying across the pavement. I confronted her about having no right to do that, but she insisted she had every right to stop what she called violence against animals. Then, completely out of nowhere, she slapped me across the face. Hard. The sound echoed through the street and several people stopped to stare. When I asked her if she had just assaulted me, she yelled that I deserved it and called me an animal murderer. Little did she know one of the other students had recorded the whole thing on their phone. Even better, the studio had security cameras outside that caught everything. I immediately called the police and filed a report. Then I called the studio's owner, who happened to be a friend of my cousin. I sent them the video that the student had shared with me, and within an hour Karen was fired. But I wasn't done. I pressed charges for assault. The video evidence was irrefutable, and several witnesses came forward. I also made sure to mention during the proceedings that this was someone teaching yoga, a practice meant to promote peace and mindfulness, who had violently assaulted someone over their dietary choices. The story spread through our local yoga community like wildfire. The video went viral on social media, with people dubbing her the vegan villain. She ended up pleading guilty to assault charges and got community service, but the real punishment was the complete destruction of her reputation. Last I heard, she had to move to another city because no yoga studio would hire her, and her private clients all dropped her. She tried to start an online yoga channel, but people kept finding it and sharing her assault video in the comments. The studio owner gave me 6 months of free classes as an apology, and we got a new instructor who actually focuses on yoga instead of preaching about their personal beliefs. She even brings vegan cookies to share after class sometimes, proving you can be vegan without being a complete jerk about it. I now eat my lunch in the studio's break room, and nobody bats an eye when I bring my chicken sandwiches. I've always been the reliable uncle in the family. After our parents divorced when I was young, my sister and I became really close. She's 4 years older than me, and while we took different paths in life, she chose family life early on, and I focused on my career in corporate finance. We've always had each other's backs. That is, until recently. I love being an uncle. My sister has 3 amazing kids, 2 girls and a boy, and I've been there for every birthday, school play, and important moment I could manage. Despite my demanding job as a senior financial analyst, which often means 60-hour work weeks and regular weekend catch-up sessions, I always make time for them. My sister knows this, and I think that's partly why what happened next was so frustrating. It started last month when she called me about watching the kids for a weekend. She asked if I could do her a huge favor and watch the kids during their upcoming wedding anniversary as they were planning a weekend getaway. I immediately agreed, telling her I'd love to spend time with them. When she mentioned it would be in about 3 weeks, from Friday afternoon to Sunday evening, I told her that would work, but reminded her I'd need at least 2 weeks' notice to arrange everything at work because of my deadlines and client meetings. She seemed perfectly fine with this and promised to send me all the details soon. I immediately started preparing. I requested time off from my boss, which wasn't easy considering we had a major project deadline approaching. I even had to promise to work extra hours the following week to make up for it. I turned down an invitation to my college roommate's bachelor party that same weekend, and I spent nearly $200 stocking up my apartment with kid-friendly snacks, games, and activities. Friday finally came around. I had everything ready, fresh sheets on the beds, their favorite cereals in the pantry, and even rented some new movies I thought they'd enjoy. That's when my phone buzzed. My sister texted to tell me they had changed their plans, saying they'd found an amazing family resort with a water park and would be taking the kids with them instead. She casually mentioned we could do the babysitting another time. No apology, no acknowledgement of the preparation I'd done. Nothing. I texted back telling her it wasn't cool to do this, explaining how I'd rearranged my entire schedule and turned down other plans to help her out. She dismissed my concerns, telling me not to make such a big deal out of it because plans change. I was fuming but decided to let it go. Then 2 days later, she called again. She tried to play it off as a funny story, explaining that the resort had a booking mix-up and asked if I could watch the kids the following weekend instead. When I told her no, explaining that I'd already rescheduled all my commitments for the coming week, she got upset. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying the kids had been looking forward to staying with me. I reminded her that she should have thought about that before canceling on me last minute. That's when she accused me of being incredibly selfish and claimed I was punishing her kids because I was mad at her. I stood my ground and simply stated that I wasn't punishing anyone, I just wasn't available. That's when things really exploded. She called our parents, who then called me. My mom tried to convince me to help out, saying my sister was really struggling to find someone to watch the kids. When I pointed out that I had already tried to help and she was the one who canceled on me, my dad jumped in with a classic, "You'll understand when you have kids" line, telling me things come up when you're a parent. I had to explain to them that this wasn't about having kids, it was about respect. But here's where it gets even better. Yesterday I ran into my sister's best friend at the grocery store. Turns out there was never any resort booking mix-up. My sister had found a cheaper babysitter for that weekend, but then that person canceled on her. She only called me as a backup. I decided to send a family group text, including our parents. I called out my sister's lie about the resort booking, explaining how I'd learned the truth about her finding a cheaper babysitter who had canceled. I reminded her that our town isn't that big and people talk. I made it clear that while I'm happy to help with the kids when I can, I deserve basic respect and honesty. And until then, she shouldn't ask me to rearrange my life for her. The family group chat exploded. My sister finally admitted what she'd done and apologized, but only after our parents called her out. They finally saw my side of things, especially after learning about the lie. Now she's been calling and texting continuously. But I'm taking some time for myself. I did send individual messages to my nieces and nephew, telling them that Uncle loves them very much and we'll have our special weekend soon. But only after their mom learns to be more considerate of other people's time. I work in customer support for a healthcare software company, and let me tell you about the time I maliciously complied with my new supervisor's ridiculous policy. Our software isn't your typical consumer app. We're talking about systems that hospitals and medical centers rely on to keep their operations running. When these systems go down, it can literally be a matter of life and death. I've been doing this job for 5 years, and I've pretty much seen it all. Most of our clients know me by name because I can usually solve their problems quickly, even the weird ones that don't fit the usual patterns. It's not about following a rule book. It's about understanding the software and using your brain. That was until our new supervisor showed up. Fresh out of some fancy management program, this guy walked in like he had all the answers to problems we didn't even have. His big solution? A script-only policy. According to him, we were wasting time by thinking for ourselves and offering custom solutions. During the team meeting where he announced this brilliant idea, I raised my concerns. I explained that most of our clients call us because they have specific issues that need custom solutions, and following a script wouldn't help them. The supervisor just smugly replied that the script was designed to handle all scenarios efficiently and everyone had to follow it, no exceptions. When I tried to bring up our major clients, he cut me off, declaring that even if the CEO of our biggest client called, we had to follow the script. End of discussion. Well, karma has a funny way of working things out. 2 weeks later, I got a call that would make this whole situation blow up in his face. It was the CEO of our largest client, a healthcare network worth millions in contracts to our company. Their entire system was down, affecting patient care across multiple hospitals. The CEO called in a panic, explaining that their system had completely crashed. They couldn't access any patient records or run diagnostics. He emphasized that this was an emergency situation. I immediately recognized the issue, a known bug with a simple 5-minute fix that I'd handled many times before. But of course, this solution wasn't in the sacred script. Following protocol, I started with my scripted response, telling him I understood his concern and needed to start by verifying his account information. The CEO cut me off, frustrated, saying they had patients waiting. But I stuck to the script, apologizing and asking if they'd tried restarting the system. The CEO was incredulous. He reminded me that they'd worked with our company for years and that I had personally fixed this exact issue just last month. I responded by explaining that I was only allowed to offer solutions from our approved script, and if these steps didn't resolve the issue, I could escalate his case for a callback within 24 hours. There was a long pause before the CEO demanded to be put through to the escalation team. I politely agreed and logged it as an urgent escalation. Within an hour, my supervisor got called into an emergency meeting with the department head. Apparently, the CEO had reached out to our company's executive team directly. The story going around was that he'd threatened to terminate their multi-million-dollar contract. In his conversation with our company executives, the CEO had reportedly made it clear that if we thought running through a script instead of actually solving problems was acceptable support, they would take their business elsewhere. He emphasized that patients were waiting for care while our support team was just reciting policy at him. By the end of the day, we all received an urgent email about an update to the script policy. Suddenly, we were encouraged to use our best judgment and go off script when needed. My supervisor got put under performance review, and last I heard, he's being transferred to a different department. In the weeks that followed, the story spread through the company like wildfire. Some people said the CEO had threatened to buy out our biggest competitor. Others swore he'd promised to blacklist our supervisor from the entire healthcare industry. Whatever the real story was, my supervisor's name became synonymous with failed micromanagement. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.